What is up, YouTube? I am Eric and you are watching Retro Video Game Pickups. In this video we are talking about Google Stadia and all that it encompasses and what I think about it. So before we get into it, make sure that you remember to subscribe and hit that bell notification because it lets you know when I post more videos. With that being said, let's hop into it. So let's talk about Google Stadia for just a little bit in this video, and I want you guys to know that I wanted this to be a success, and honestly it's looking like it may not be. And there are a few reasons for that, and I'll line those out here in a bit, but I want to tell you guys what Google Stadia is before that. And really what it is a streaming service for games. Think about it this way. You probably have either a PC or a console at your house that you play video games on. So you gotta shell out either the $300 to $400 for the console or the $300 to $500 to $1,000 to $1,500. However much you want to spend on a PC, that's how much you've got to go out and spend on these consoles to play their games. Like think of Xbox. They have the ability to play both on a console and a PC. And honestly, that is kind of what Google Stadia is trying to replace. What they are trying to do is to create a way to live stream that to your device without having to pay for an incredibly expensive system. And honestly, I think it's a cool idea. However, there's a few things that have to be pretty much perfect in order to make it worth it. And honestly, I don't know if that's going to happen with Google Stadia. We will only see in the future. Now, I will say Google does a great amount of work when it comes to networking and internet and all kinds of stuff like that. They do great work, and honestly, this is not talking bad about Google at all. This is more like what I think about the Stadia itself and kind of what I want to see out of it and what I think is going to be a problem. And we're talking about it. It looks like it's going to come with a cool controller that actually syncs up via Wi-Fi to the server itself. Not just your system, the actual server itself. That way you won't have as much lag or latency when you're playing these games. But there's a few things that I think this will kind of ruin the whole idea of Stadia. So Stadia is a service that you would pay for monthly, yearly, however you want to pay for it, that you would use, like say an old laptop that you have. You would log into a Google browser and be able to play these games on that browser, it looks like, using Google servers. That means you could play on your mobile phone. You could be playing Call of Duty or something like that of that caliber. And honestly, I don't know how that will work because honestly, you're just kind of seeing it as a screen, so it might be harder to see things, but I think it could be a cool thing if it's done properly. Now, what that means is that system that you have that you're playing this on doesn't have to be a beefy system. You don't have to go out and shell out $300, $500, however much money you would spend for either a console or a PC. And so I think that's one thing that Stadia has going for it. However, the downfall of this means you have to have good internet. And I think this is going to be one thing that really could make or break Google Stadia, because I have decent internet where I'm at. However, I do not have gigabit speeds. Now, I know some people around the country do, but where I'm located, it's not gigabit, at least not in my house or in the surrounding neighborhoods. But honestly, that could happen in the next few years and it could make everything better. But also the distance from my house to this server, if it is making multiple hops, which is going to slow this thing down, it's not really going to matter how beefy the server is. If I'm getting my internet slowed down, just trying to hit it coming back and all that's just going to be terrible. So I think one thing that Google has to figure out is how to deal with the latency or the lag that people are putting in, not only from their person or their machine to the server, but then from the server out, which, I mean, the server out is probably going to be better than if you hosted it on your own Xbox or your PC. However, you're still having to make those extra jumps to make it to the server, so I don't know how this is going to be worked out. They may figure out a way to do it, they may do it wonderfully, but from my standpoint, it's just going to be hard to make it well worth it to make the games not be slower because of kind of that latency or the lag issue just due to network. And that's if your network is perfect. If it's slow, you're probably not going to want this, which means you're probably not going to even be able to, which means they're not going to make money from you. So I think that is another issue that Google Stadia has, is not only does it deal with kind of getting to the server, but also the person like me, if I set up my computer and tried to get to it, if my network sucks, everyone's gonna, at least I'm gonna have a problem with the server, and it's just not gonna be fun or well worth paying for. So I just think it is just kind of gonna be a problem if you can't figure that network issue out. The next thing is going to be price. If this thing is $10 a month, which I know they've released some details about it, but if this thing was going to be worth it for $10 a month and you played it for solely a year, that's $120. Well, you could probably go out right now and find a Xbox One original or a PS4 original and probably pay between $125 to $175 and get a console that you own, that you are not having to shell out money for each and every month. So I think the price point is going to be a difficult thing for Google Stadia to do, because I don't think people are going to want to be able to pay $150 a year for 3 years, 5 years. Think about it. If you spend $150 for 3 years, that's almost $500. You can buy an Xbox One X brand new for that price. Now, I will say that there is kind of a different aspect to think about it. If you spend that $450 on a computer, you may not have a graphics card that works with everything. And that's what I think is a very good thing that Stadia has going for it. These servers are going to be up to date, they're going to be patched, all that stuff, which I think might make it worth it for those people that are PC gamers, because instead of having to go out and buying a graphics card that's $1,500 because of Bitcoin mining and that has just skyrocketed it, or something of that nature, if your power supply goes out or something like that, you're not having to worry about getting parts for your computer. You are just basically paying to have this server set up, ready to go whenever you get on it, with the latest and greatest. And honestly, I think that could be a very big selling point for the Google Stadia. If it is done right, I think that could be very beneficial towards it. But one of the last things I'm going to talk about, and I think is the biggest factor, is the cheapness of these games. Now, when I think about a new Xbox One game or a PS4 game or a Nintendo Switch game, I think it's going to be $60, but I'm going to pick up that physical copy. As you can tell behind me there, as you can tell me down there, and over there, sorry, it's hard to point sometimes, I have physical copy games. And honestly, if I'm paying $60, I want that physical copy. I want that case. I want the manual, if it has a manual. And I want the game physically. That way, if I ever want to play this, I can put it in my Switch, put it on my Xbox, put it on my PS4, and play it whenever I need to, which is something I like to do. But with Google Stadia, it's going to be a digital currency, or I guess a digital game, not currency. However, that's going to be a big deal if these games are $60, which we just recently found out these games are $60, so you are paying full-blown retail to play these games. That's my biggest downfall with the system and the service, I guess is probably the perfect term to call this. It is a service, not a system. But I think that Google needs to work with these companies and say, hey, is there any way we can make these $50 or $40 or whatever it is to offset that cost? Maybe they say, hey, buy this game for $60 and get a month free, or something like that digitally, or some way to do that. I think that would be very beneficial for both the digital game maker, the publisher, whatever, and Google Stadia themselves. So I am very much struggling with the idea of having to pay full-blown retail for a digital game. Now, I know people do it all the time, and I know it's a thing that happens, but for me, I just don't do that. If there's a physical version, I buy the physical version. You can see, like, I obviously have a game room that I love collecting games and playing games and all that, but if it's all digital, it's just not as fun as pulling that disc out of the case and putting it in the system and playing it. So with that being said, I think that the price could be the worst thing that these games have going for them, and it's not a good thing they have going for them. Just because they're full-blown retail doesn't mean that there shouldn't be either a discount because it is digitally, or a way that they work in free Google Stadia service. So with that being said, I want to know what you think about this. Do you think the Google Stadia is very worth it, or is it just going to be a flop? What do you guys think? I want to know what you think about it for sure. Comment down below and let me know what you think about it. With that being said, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell notification because it lets you know when I post videos, which is almost, if not every day. So with that being said, I want to say one more time, thank you so much for watching, and make sure you have a good day.